Hello, I'm going to be responding to Andrew Lawson's claim of nuclear power plants are a safe alternative to fossil fuel-based energy production. Firstly, his first secondary claim was that nuclear power's reputation as being unsafe is undeserved. Secondly, his second secondary claim is nuclear power is getting safer. Well, in response to his first secondary claim, I say that nuclear power's reputation as being unsafe is deserved, because nuclear power plant accidents prove that even with proper precautions in an event of a nuclear disaster, people will still suffer negative consequences towards their own health. According to research by Stanford University and Science Daily, Japanese government agencies evacuated a 20-kilometer radius around the plant, which was in Fukushima, and then distributed iodine tablets in order to prevent radioiodine uptake. Their paper also noted that 600 deaths were reported as a result of the evacuation process by itself. Fukushima's plant meltdown in 2011 therefore still killed hundreds of people despite speedy safety precautions. According to the International Atomic Energy Agency, there have been at least 1,800 documented cases of thyroid cancer in children, which the thyroid gland of young children is particularly susceptible to the uptake of radioactive iodine. So in the radioactive meltdown of Chernobyl, the radioactive waste that had been emitted had clearly contributed to the radioactive fallout in the children, thus they had received the cancer. So going to the advocate's second response, nuclear power is getting safer. Nuclear power is actually still possesses an immediate harm towards our own safety. Fukushima's plant meltdown showed the potential for immediate harm for human life. Nuclear power plants are vulnerable to natural disasters which cause the power plants to emit the radiation. So in the International Atomic Energy Agency's report on Chernobyl, 28 of the firemen and emergency cleanup workers died in the first 3 months after the explosion from acute radiation sickness and one of the cardiac arrest. So by doing so, that had proved that no matter what precautions that could take place to prevent the accidents in Fukushima, the radiation had therefore caused their immediate death due through its inadequate protection of the energy stored within the plant. And so this was my response to the advocate's claim that the nuclear power plants are a safe alternative to fossil fuel-based energy production, as his claims were nuclear power's reputation as being unsafe is undeserved, and nuclear power is getting safer. Thank you.
All right, well, the structural things are fine. You identify the claims that you're going to be responding to, and that's pretty good. On the individual arguments, though, same sort of thing that I was mentioning just a second ago. I think you've got counterclaims here. There's no discussion of whether or not the advocate's evidence was reasonable in drawing a particular conclusion, whether or not their reasoning is appropriate. You're basically saying, let's look at these particular examples and show you that, in fact, a danger exists. And you did okay on that. The 600 deaths due to the evacuation, I think that's an interesting one. You do want to give us a source citation on that. I assume it's pretty generic information, but I still think we need to get some documentation on that. Later on, you make a reference to the 28 deaths of the firefighters, and you do give a source citation on that, so I don't understand why you wouldn't have done that on the other point as well. I was a little bit unclear about the 1,800 thyroid cancers in children that you were talking about, whether that was talking about the Japan event or Chernobyl or something else, or if that's the life history of all nuclear power plants. And of course, the one thing that is missing here is a comparison to what risk the advocate was talking about. I don't think that the advocate said that there was zero risk, but the question is, are the risks proportionately reasonable or safe compared to, let's say, other energy sources? I don't remember if the advocate presented any argument about other energy sources and the risks that they present. I think this is a good argument, and you've got some good evidence on these particular points. It needs to be just a little bit clearer. On the safety issue, basically it just comes down to not that the plants are inherently unsafe, but that there are natural disasters that might make them unsafe. And the only example that you have that you can point to here is the Fukushima instance, and you do have some deaths that are related to that, the 28 firefighters and apparently the 600 people who died subsequently after that. So that seems like a big chunk. Of course, that also took place in a tsunami situation, an earthquake situation, where there were 9,000 other people that died as a consequence of the events that's going on there. So it's one of those things where it's much more dramatic if you don't have the natural disaster that's going on there. And that's the only example that you can point to where there was civilian, at least, problems that I think that you've documented. So it just feels a little bit thin there. I think there are some arguments to be made about the potential dangers of meltdowns in addition to the actual dangers here, and that there are perhaps other issues that were not addressed by the advocate that have to deal with safety. For instance, the storage of waste matters, for example, or the mining of the uranium itself. Any of those things could be problems too. All right, thank you.